Hey, welcome to part 3. I just cracked open a new Mountain Dew. Hopefully it'll keep me awake through part 3 and part 4 of this video as we go through the 2005 AP test. You can follow the link below if you want to check out the test yourself. My suggestion, as I said in the other videos, if you haven't watched them, is to pause the video each time we do a question, see if you can answer it, and then go ahead and listen to my my ramblings as I kind of mentally walk through the problem and how I would solve it myself. Alright, so let's pick up where we left off. Problem number 31. A change in which of the following will cause the short-run aggregate supply curve to shift? Alright, that was your cue to pause again. And I'm just going to take a sip of this wonderful soda. Who calls it soda? I'm from Michigan. I call it pop. I'm going to take a sip of this wonderful pop while you think about this problem. Alright. Aggregate supply. Well, if we have a shift in the price level, there's my aggregate demand, aggregate supply. I feel like I'm drawing this graph over and over again. If there's a change in the price level, well, that's really just a shift along the supply curve, so no, that is, if that's the only thing that changed, then it just moves along the curve, and that probably happened because of a change in the aggregate demand. But no, that does not cause the supply curve to shift. If there is a change in government spending, no, that affects aggregate demand and not aggregate supply. That leaves the cost of all inputs. Absolutely, those are costs of production, so I like 3 only as my only answer there. Alright, number 32. In an economy with lump sum taxes and no international sector, okay, so we just threw out the rest of the world, and we have lump sum taxes. Alright, meaning you just paid in one big chunk. Assume that the aggregate supply curve is horizontal. Alright, so here we go. Aggregate supply curve is horizontal, at least at that part of the curve where we currently are. So we'll draw aggregate demand down here where we're on that kind of that horizontal part of the aggregate supply curve. If the marginal propensity to consume is equal to 0.8, which of the following will necessarily be true? Well, the average propensity to consume will be less than the marginal propensity to consume. No. Wow, that was a good explanation. I love I don't really have a good answer for that. I'm just going to skip it, but no, that's not right. At least I don't think it is. Maybe I should come back to it, but let me see what the others say. The government expenditure multiplier will be equal to 5. 1 over 1 minus MPC, which is 0.8, equals 1 over 0.2. That equals 5. Actually, I kind of like that answer. Let's see if any of the others make any sense. A $10 increase in consumption and spending will bring about an $80 increase in disposable income. No, we got a multiplier of 5. Wealth will tend to accumulate in the hands of a few people. There's nothing that necessarily says that's true. The economy will be running a deficit since the consumption expenditures exceed personal savings. That's not necessarily true either. So yeah, I'm going to go with B. Number 33. Ooh, I like these ones. Country A can produce either 2 tons of cocoa or 4 cars with 10 units of labor. Country B can produce either 5 tons of cocoa or 25 cars with 10 units of labor. Based on the following, which of the following is true? That was your cue to pause again. Alright, well, the way I always set this up is I do, let's see, I've got country A and country B, and they can either do cars or coke. Ooh, that's horrible. cocoa. There we go. Country A, and we're using the same amount of labor, so that's good. We can do either 2 tons of cocoa or 4 cars. Country B can do 5 cocoa or 25 cars. Hokey Pete. Well, Country B clearly has the absolute advantage in both things, but how about comparative advantage? Comparative advantage is, if you don't remember, it's what you give up divided by what you get. Give up over get. So the opportunity cost of cocoa is 4 over 2, and the opportunity cost here is 25 over 5 equals 5. Country A, despite having a severe disadvantage in absolute terms, has a comparative advantage in producing cocoa. So Country A has an absolute advantage in, no, has no comparative absolute advantages. Country A has a comparative advantage in the production of cocoa, yes. While Country B has an advantage in the production of cars, yes. If we were to do the reverse of these, we'd see that we had 0.5 and 0.2. So anyway, yeah, that B looks good. Country A, no. Country A has a comparative disadvantage in the production of both goods. No, it has an absolute disadvantage in both goods, but not comparative. And nope, there is comparative advantage. So yep, we'll stick with B. 34. Which of the following is included in the computation of gross domestic product? When I think about this problem, the main thing that I think about is something new has to be produced for it to be counted. So, government transfer payments such as unemployment benefits, nothing's being produced. Used goods and used cars, no, that's nothing new is being produced. Child care tasks performed by house husbands, well, there's no market transaction there, so no. Total value of business inventories, no. If there was a change in business inventories, that would get counted, but just the total value isn't counted. Additions to Additions to business inventories would be counted in GDP. Yeah. All right, number 35. In the country of agronomia, banks charge 10% interest on all loans. If the general price level has been increasing at a rate of 4% per year, the real interest rate in I can't even say it, in that country is, well, the nominal interest rate is 10% minus the real interest rate of 4%. The inflation rate of 4%. So nominal minus inflation equals the real amount. I'm going to go with C, 6%. Number 36. According to the theory of rational expectations, a fully anticipated expansionary monetary policy will. Alright, so rational expectations, meaning we are actually expecting that. If we anticipate that, what is going to be the effect? It's not going to increase potential output. That's kind of limited by what we can do. If we have expansionary monetary policy, that's going to hopefully decrease unemployment, not increase it. Have no impact on real output. Well, if we expect the monetary policy, then we'll kind of have built in into our pricing models and everything, we will have expected that, and so since we were already expecting it and it's already priced in, it's really not going to have an impact on real output. I actually kind of like that one. Let's see what the last two say. It will promote the production of consumer goods over capital goods. No, monetary policy isn't going to necessarily promote consumer goods over capital goods. If anything, it would probably do the opposite. And is it going to result in deflation? No, it's not going to. So yeah, I do like C is the only option there. Now that one's kind of a tricky one there. Wow, I just looked at the percentages of that. Only 22% of people got that one right. Go us. It's kind of a tricky one because that rational expectations model, we haven't really gone into a lot of detail on that, but again, if you expected the expansionary monetary policy, you would have priced all of those things in already, and so it's not really going to have much of a impact anymore. In an economy with a horizontal aggregate supply curve, an increase in government spending, okay, horizontal aggregate supply curve, there's aggregate demand, and we had an increase in government spending. Sorry, I should have given you a moment to try to solve this before I started drawing it. But the increase, ooh, that was bad. The increase in government spending will increase aggregate demand, and so I'm seeing an increase in output, but I'm seeing no change in the price level because we're at that horizontal part of the aggregate supply curve. Number 38. The aggregate demand curve is downward sloping because as the price level increases, there's our beautiful aggregate demand curve. I even labeled it this time. I skip labels too often when I'm answering questions. So why is that downward sloping? The purchasing power of wealth decreases. Let's see, oh, sorry, I misread that. Yeah, that does make sense. As the price level increases, purchasing power of wealth decreases, right? So as the price is going up, you can't buy as much stuff because it's more expensive. That actually does make sense. Demand for imports decreases. No, if the, well, it really doesn't have much of an effect necessarily on well, yeah, it does have an effect on imports, of course. If the price level of domestic goods is really high, then I'll buy imports instead. Duh. Okay, demand for interest-sensitive expenditures increases. No. Demand for domestically produced substitute goods increases. No, because this is the price level of all goods, so substitute goods would also be at a higher price level. And the real value of fixed assets increases. No, that doesn't make sense. Yeah, it makes sense that the purchasing power of wealth, your money doesn't go as far. 39. All right. A commercial bank is facing the conditions given above. If the reserve requirement is 12% and the bank does not sell any of its securities, the maximum amount of additional lending the bank can undertake is... Well, they've got $100,000 in deposits, so that's how much they owe to their consumers. I got a hair on my screen. There we go. So the question then becomes, how much can they lend out? Well, if the reserve requirement is 12%, their total, they must have at least 12,000 on hand. They've got 15,000 on hand. So 15,000 minus, I should do that, 15,000 minus the 12,000 that they need, it looks like they can loan out an additional $3,000. Number 40. According to Keynesian analysis, if government expenditures and taxes are increased by the same amount, which of the following will occur? Alright, we actually did this one in class. It was on another test. It's the exact same question. Or maybe it was on the test that I gave you. Anyway, I got this from somewhere else. But let's answer it. If government expenditures and taxes are increased by the same amount. Well, that will have no effect on aggregate supply. If expenditures are increased, well, that will shift aggregate demand outward. And if taxes are increased by the same amount, well, that's going to shift aggregate demand back toward where it was. Now, the real question is which one's going to have a bigger impact, the expenditures or the taxes, or will they have the exact same impact? If they have the exact same impact, it'd be unaffected. If the increase in taxes had a bigger effect than the expenditures, then we would see a decrease in aggregate demand, and if the expenditures had a bigger impact than the taxes, then demand would increase. And because we're talking about Keynesian analysis, we would assume that the spending has a bigger impact than the taxes. So we will go with E. 41. If investors feel that business conditions will deteriorate in the future, the demand for loans and real interest rate in the loanable funds market will change in which of the following ways? Loanable funds, quantity of loanable funds, real interest rate, demand, and supply. And what happened here? Investors feel that business conditions will deteriorate in the future. Ooh, then I don't want to borrow money because I'm not going to be able to make money because business conditions are getting worse. So I think the demand is going to decrease. And if it does, real interest rates are indeed going from there down to there, and thinking they're going to decrease, I'll go with D. Alright, 41. Oh, sorry, 40, that was 41. 42. If a country has a current account deficit, which of the following must be true? Well, if it's got a deficit in the current account, I see the answer here. I think it's sometimes referred to the financial account instead of the capital account. But yes, then because the financial account and the current account are going to always be in balance and equal zero, so there must be a surplus in the financial account. But it used to be called, it's sometimes called the capital account, sometimes the financial account. I guess that's just something you're going to have to recognize there. So there you go. 43. The long-run growth rate of an economy will be increased by an increase in all of the following except. Alright, so what is going to cause long-run growth rate? Well, if we have more capital stock, if we have more machinery, that should cause that. I guess what we're essentially talking about would be a rightward shift in that long-run aggregate supply. So yeah, if we had more machinery, we'd be able to produce more stuff, so our potential GDP would go up. If we had an increase in the amount of workers available, we'd be able to produce more stuff. If we have a change in the real interest rate, that does not necessarily affect an increase in the interest rate. Yeah, that would actually decrease our investment in capital, and so no, I think that's the wrong one. If we had a faster technological change, that'd be the same thing as better machinery. That would increase aggregate supply. And if we had an increase in spending on education and training, our workers are going to be more efficient. So no, yes, that would increase the long-run growth rate. So the only one that wouldn't is if we have an increase in real interest rates. All right, assume that the government implements a deficit reduction policy that results in changes in aggregate income and output. Then the Federal Reserve engages in monetary policy actions that reverse the changes in income and output caused by the fiscal policy action. Which of the following sets of changes in taxes and government spending, government spending, the required reserve ratio, and discount rate is most consistent with these policies? Ugh, that one was a mouthful. It's really not that hard, but it's a mouthful. Good luck on that one. Alright, you want my answer? Fine. So, what we're looking for is, a deficit reduction policy that results in changes in aggregate income and output. And the Fed is going to be doing the opposite, so that aggregate demand, so income and output, pretty much stays the same. Well, a deficit reduction policy is going to, deficit reduction policy is going to mean we either have to increase taxes or decrease government spending. So I like increased taxes would reduce the deficit, because then we have more income. So I don't like those. We'd want to decrease government spending. So we've already narrowed it down to B and C. And so now we would want that increase in government spending, that decrease in spending and increase in taxing would drive demand down. So I need some monetary fiscal policy that's going to increase aggregate demand. So I want to somehow increase the money supply. I'm going to go with B on this one, because if I decrease the reserve ratio, that will increase the money supply and thereby increase aggregate demand. If I increase the reserve ratio, then banks are going to have to hold more. The decrease in the discount rate might increase the money supply, but those two things are then counteracting each other. So I'm going to go with B. 45. Last one for this video. With an increase in investment demand in the United States, the real interest rate rises. In this situation, the most likely change in the capital stock in the United States and international flow of the dollar would be which of the following? Alright, so we want an increase in investment demand in the United States. So let's do, let's look at the quantity of dollars and the exchange rate. I'll call it the exchange rate of dollars. We've got a demand and a supply. Alright, increase in investment demand, the real interest rate rises. Well, if we've got higher real interest rates, people are going to want to invest in the United States, so I think we're actually going to see an increase in the capital stock as people are investing more and more in the U.S., which if they're doing that, the demand to invest in the U.S., they need U.S. dollars, and so I believe the exchange rate is going to increase. So we'll go with C, increase. Alright, one more video to go, and then we'll have completed the 2005 AP Macroeconomics test.